There's the goop from one side of the suspension. It's hard to tell, but there's a lot in there. Okay, I use this pot blaster as well. Works way better than sandblasting because it pushes the sand rather than trying to siphon it up. So I built my cabinet, I made it work for either. The trouble is, it's so much sand and so fast it takes just a few minutes to empty this 20-gallon tank, and you can't see what's going on because it's just so much sand in the cabinet. But I put the springs in there and it did a fantastic job. I had to just aim where I thought they were in the cabinet, and it was able to blast the rust off the far side of the coil, you know, on the inside of the coil where you can't get to with the regular sandblaster. Here's the input for the pot blaster. This is when I just use the regular siphon feed. I put the air in there. Sandblasting front suspension and steering parts still goes pretty slow. I upgraded the air compressor. Not particularly happy with these guys. When I got it, plugged it on, it blew the safety valve because they didn't adjust the regulator. So I adjusted that to have it shut off before 200 psi. I emailed them and they said, "Oh, you just voided your warranty." Well, thanks a lot. So, and then the other problem with it is I don't know if they have a check valve in here between the tank and the compressor, and so it leaks down overnight. I mean, I leak checked my connection and it's fine, which I don't really like it leaking down and running all the time, so I got to figure out how to fix that too. So I just sandblasted. I think this one for the second time. So what happens is there's bits of grease and stuff in there that you can't blast out, and so then you find them when you try to blast, and then you have to scrape them and then blast again to really get it clean. So it's quite a pain, especially these control arms when you get into these interior corners like here. So I've scraped that and blasted it several times, and I probably still need one more because there's still a little bit of grease in there. I'm doing all this for control arms. I'm probably going to throw away wishbone, I guess, because they're hammered out here. Most people think that the life of a car restoration specialist is fame and fortune, women throwing themselves at you, but it's more than that. It's a lot of long hours sandblasting and cleaning parts. So I almost have all the parts here for the front end and front suspension, front steering, a few more in the blasting cabinet. So I think I'm going to bake the cast iron stuff to make sure it's outgassed, and then try to powder coat it. There's all the cast parts for the front end suspension and steering in the oven, ready for bake. My conductive hanger for powder coating. I didn't have any high temp plugs for the big holes here, so I tried high temp RTV, and I even did it on this surface. I'm hoping that I can get that off after I bake it. Got it in the steering center tie rod as well. Put it on the threads, not worried about that. That'll wire brush off easily. But before I had to try to use this capped on tape, and it's really hard to get a nice edge with it. I wanted to cut a circle, but the tape is not nearly wide enough. So we'll see how it goes. And now I have to wire brush it out with the moto tool, but it works pretty well actually. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's not as good as a plug, but I didn't have anything at the time. Well, what could be simpler? I have all the suspension and steering parts laid out here, with the exception of just a couple over there that need to be painted sometime. And it's time to start trying to put all this back together.